Hello and welcome to the Maine Masterclass. I'm Meeta, Sahni, and I'm really pleased to be joined today by our Director of Recruitment, Carly Stevens. Hi, Carly.
Hi, Meeta, and hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on what must be the hottest day of the year.
We are sweltering. Every day seems to get hotter and hotter, but we hope you're all cool, calm and collected and ready for the next 30 to 40 minutes. Carly and I are going to be speaking about how to support your people and support your organization through these difficult times, especially in the redundancy process. We're talking about outplacement support today. And as always, we've got a chat box to the right. Please use that chat box. Let us know your thoughts. Give us any questions that you might have. And we will endeavor to answer your questions in this time all around the impact of redundancy and how we can minimize the risks of what can fall out as this is happening in your organization. Carly, I know that, part of what we do is staying very close to our business community and understanding what their challenges are. What are you finding clients are talking about in terms of redundancy and outplacement at the moment?
Yeah, so I think the message at the moment is it is a difficult time. Redundancies are happening. They've started and sadly there will be more. And what we're finding is redundancies are really hard for all parties. They're hard for the managers involved. They're hard, of course, for the people who are sadly exiting. And it's also really hard for the staff left behind. So it's a difficult time for everybody. And a lot of organisations are looking to support that process however they can at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about the fact that as an organisation, the Maine group has been predominantly in the recruitment and attraction space. But in this time and over the last 4 or 5 months, the message has switched to how to protect the brand, protect the people that stay, and then give the people that are leaving some dignity and support in the way that they're exited. It's definitely a tough time. And we've been doing a lot in this outplacement support because it's not just coaching the people that are leaving, but I've just flicked over to our poll, actually, Carly, and very interestingly, the whole response has been about supporting people that are left in the business. And that's what I was going to say. Protecting your organization through this process is key, especially the people that are left. And actually, that's where outplacement can really lend itself. It's a double-edged benefit, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's interesting. I think a lot of the time, the people who are not being made redundant can sometimes be forgotten. People assume that they're okay and they're not impacted. But as a lot of us know, it is a huge impact on that community.
Yeah. So our poll today is, what is your biggest concern about your redundancy process? So the 4 options are ability to deliver on organizational strategy, remaining workers left unsettled and demotivated. That's the second option. The third option is brand reputation. And the fourth option is your exiting workers requiring increased support and advice, and therefore putting more pressure on the managers and people in your organization. At the moment, we've got 100% being in the space that remaining workers are left unsettled and demotivated. So hopefully you will all be able to take away a lot from our session, which will help you not only ensure that you exit with a really professional and supportive approach, but the fact that doing that will then help your existing people to find their feet and to understand what their organization stands for when having to do difficult tasks as well. Because everyone can be happy and be engaged when times are good, but it's about being able to maintain that and sustain that in this time. Right, so we're going to be we've got 3 sections today. We're going to start by talking a little bit about outplacement and how to protect the brand. We're then Carly then is going to speak about good leavers and parting positively. And again, the impact of that on your existing people. And then Carly and I are going to bring to life the way that we do outplacement support at the Maine World and how we help our clients to, again, ensure that we can part ways positively, which has a massive impact on the people that you retain in your world as well. So I'm going to go all technical and start a presentation today. So whilst we're doing that,
as always, it's going to be really interactive. So if anyone has questions, please do put them there in the chat box and we can answer any questions that you have.
Very much so. We've got the chat box open on the right. So we call this parting with positive footprints because actually positive footprints can be both with your exiting and your existing people. We know that, all organizations have to see redundancy through. This is, the pandemic is particularly a difficult time and where more than 50% of organizations are considering it. And we've seen in the news how many companies have had to do mass redundancies. So this is just the beginning. We know as the furlough scheme starts to wind down, that this is going to put more and more impact on organisations, which is going to then lead to redundancy processes. But I read a stat today from a company called Stay Nimble, who do surveys, that said 70% of employees that remain in an organisation felt that the redundancy process had been handled badly by their company. And it had left people feel unsupported. It had left people having mental well-being issues, needing career coaching and mental support. And actually that reflects the people that are going as well. So it really does impact everyone in an organisation. We were talking here, the next point I wanted to make was that in no uncertain terms, we want our organisations to continue to survive and thrive. So the way you manage the people that are going, the way you manage the people that you're keeping is key. And it can be the difference between survival and failure of your organisation. We all know the law. We've done a lot of that with Tosh Puppeteer, our employment lawyer partner. But today is about brand reputation and ensuring that everyone feels supported through this. And ultimately, the people that you keep want to work for an organisation like yourself, the ones that look after the people that they're exiting. So the outplacement approach, as I always talk about, is it's all about communication. It's about how you convey that message both internally and externally, and to your customers and your stakeholders as well. So really do consider all channels of communication when you are thinking about outplacement and when you're starting a redundancy process, and start to build in what the message is and how you're going to keep the same message but evolving it for your different audiences. So you've got the people that you're exiting through redundancy, you've got your people that you're keeping, who you want to make sure they feel supported and that they understand the reasons why you're making somebody redundant and you're having to go through this process. And then your customers, your clients, your stakeholders, your boards, anyone that is involved in the organization but not an employee also needs to have an understanding of your whys. And so it really is important for everyone in the senior leadership team to be on the same page about what that message is. Carly, what's your experience been of people that have been in a process that haven't had a good experience? What have you seen happen?
Actually, Meeta, I think that stat that 70% of people think the redundancies they've experienced have been handled badly is quite startling. Yeah. And this is where it all feeds into the need to have and cultivate good leaders. I think we talk a lot about good leaders, but the reasons why are really interesting. I think generally people who feel they've been treated well, they're reasonable and they're respectful. People talk, obviously, and quite often you find that if people do feel wronged, they tend to talk louder and they talk to a lot of people, they want to be heard. So cultivating good leaders is really key in terms of making your people feel heard. So they've got a voice and they can talk to you about the concerns, or if you are doing outplacement, talk to the career coach about their concerns, so they don't feel they haven't got anywhere to go to vent, if you like.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of people that are, I tell you what, something I've seen about good leavers, as you said, is if they're feeling unsettled, they'll have friends in the organization, they'll stay connected, and unfortunately, they will start to shift the mindset. And what I always say to organizations when they're thinking about redundancy is don't just think about the people that you're exiting. You have every risk that you could lose people that you don't want to lose. Exactly. So
sorry.
No, carry on.
Especially when you've got people that might have been with the organisation a long time. If you've got a strong culture, people will have bonds, they'll have relationships, often friendships with people that are staying in the business. And it's really important, therefore, to remember that you might have some that are leaving and some that are staying, but in a way, they're all going through the same process, and people do talk as well.
Yeah, I think there's a process of grief, which, as you said, both sides will experience. There will be a process of uncertainty and insecurity where people who are staying in the organization think, I can't take the uncertainty, and will choose to leave purely because they feel that they're unsettled. And again, this is where the message from you as leaders has to be consistent. The support has to be for your existing people with daily catch-ups, with open forums. Look, we're going through a redundancy process. What questions do you have? And having all your managers on the same page will actually, it's a reciprocal relationship. Your good stayers will help you have good leavers, and your good leavers will help you have good stayers, if that's the right terminology.
Exactly. It's all interlinked. And then there are other reasons that you might not be thinking about, but cultivating good leaders is key, because in the future, you might want to rehire these people. At the moment, sadly, people are making redundancies not because they want these people to leave, but because there isn't a role for them in a lot of cases. So keeping the door open is really powerful, that you might want to be able to rehire this person in the future, or even if not, they might work in the same industry, so they're going to be in your network, and it's just all about leaving those positive footprints.
Yeah, creating fans is what you want to do as an organization, rather than having people talk negatively. And it really is such a fine line. That's where we feel that outplacement support is so key. It's such a fine line. You can do the whole process and have somebody disgruntled, and you can do the whole process and think you've done it the same, but you haven't. You've done it better. And that's where outplacement support comes in. Something that I've really seen is getting your message about the why really important. And that's easy right now. We're in the middle of a pandemic. The role just isn't there anymore. But we also know, especially as recruiters, we know that the cost of hiring is, it's expensive. It can go into the thousands, sometimes even into the tens of thousands. So again, spending and investing in outplacement support is a fraction of the cost of having to rehire these people down the line. So absolutely cultivate relationships as you part ways, give them that support, stay in touch, create a bench for future hires again. And you'll see yourselves investing now into the future of your workforce through outplacement support, which not often, people don't always join the dots on that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if it's done correctly, these people will leave as brand ambassadors. They'll leave feeling really positive about the organisation, and they'll be a key member of your network in the future.
Yeah. So just doing a midway check of the poll, and what we have at the moment is that 50% are concerned about being able to deliver on the organisational strategy, and 50% is still on remaining workers being left unsettled and demotivated. And actually, they link together, don't they? I mean, ultimately, if you have a engaged and positive workforce, they will then help you deliver on the organisational strategy. And we just actually did on Thursday a webinar on creating job descriptions with output objectives rather than task-based objectives. Carly, do you want to I know this isn't part of our topic today, but why do you think output objectives are key for job descriptions at this time?
Well, I think it's really important, particularly in a remote scenario, which many of us still find ourselves in. And being able to manage on outcomes allows remote management to be so much more fluid and so much easier. And it makes the person who's being managed feel much more engaged and respected and trusted to get on.
Yeah, very much. We, at this time, when you're doing a redundancy process, the people that you keep are also going to be thinking, I'm going to have to absorb the work of these people. Yeah. And as much as we know as an organization that potentially the work has reduced or changed, our workers don't have the insight that we do as business leaders and departmental leaders. So the communication is key, and spending that time with each of your employees or enabling each line manager to start to create an output-based job description that then shows your employees what good looks like will turn it from them feeling demotivated to thinking, I actually know how I can show that I'm successful, that I'm adding value. And it will help managers to start to achieve the organizational strategic objectives as well. So it is all linked. It's about redefining what good looks like. It's about training your managers to be able to remotely manage and support. And output JDs really allow managers to check in rather than check up on their people. So, sorry, go on, Colin.
I was just going to say, I think it's really interesting that because it very much links, doesn't it? Being able to deliver the strategic objective links to people who are left behind. If they are feeling demotivated, concerned, or unsettled themselves, that's going to have an impact on their ability to take on extra work if that is required. So it all goes hand in hand.
It does. And sometimes not extra work, but needing to change what they do, upskill in what they do, and having the confidence to believe in themselves will come from their organization believing in them.
Exactly. It's hard for someone to be agile when they're not feeling confident in the surroundings. So it's important for so many reasons.
It is. So Carly and I are going to spend the next 15 odd minutes just talking a little bit about what support we give to our business community when we do outplacement support for them. In terms of how we deliver this, we have actually evolved and adapted our offering for this time, we very much offered up till now a one-on-one outplacement service where we would take each of your redundant employees and spend time coaching them individually. And we can still do that. We can help them rewrite their job descriptions and every step that we're going to talk about now. But we also just wanted you to know that we have listened to what our clients have been telling us. And some of the factors are just the volume, the sheer volume of people that are being outplaced, and also the cost of outplacement on an organization. Not only are you having to make redundancy payments, perhaps get external parties in to support you in the redundancy process, but then to add the cost of outplacement on top of that can be a challenge. So we've actually created a group coaching approach to the outplacement service that we are offering as well. So if there's any of that might sound of interest, please get in touch with us. At the end of this webinar, we will have our contact details. You can also post a yes, please in the chat box if that's something of interest. And we can talk to you about how we can create a really bespoke package for what your organization needs, because we can't tell you how powerful and how commercial it is to have the right outplacement support for everyone in your organization, both those leaving and the people you're keeping.
Exactly. I think there's a lot of room for the one-to-one coaching, which is still a really key part. But actually, we found that group coaching sessions can be really successful and people do get a lot of benefit from them.
Very much so. So let's start. So, Carls, would you taking the first one?
Absolutely. So this is really just walking through the steps that we would take when we're providing outplacement support. And the first thing, we use the word coaching, and it really is coaching. This is about easing the transition for an exiting employee and actually forming this sort of role of, they're losing out on a lot of community when they're being made redundant. So the coach would form the role of somebody that they can talk to and trust. So it's about building that relationship. And then the coach and the exiting individual will spend time working closely together and really spending time going through the acceptance process. There is a grieving process. So it's about going through that grieving process, reaching a point of acceptance, and then being ready to move on. I think we find that if people are rushed to move on with their job search too quickly whilst they're still grieving, they can really struggle. That can have an impact on how they present at interviews later down the line. So the coach will work closely with the exiting employee to understand how they're feeling and get them to a point where they're feeling confident and positive. And that's the first bit. And then, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that part of people being ready to move on also impacts how they feel about the organization they're leaving. So part of this hand-holding and coaching will mean that they start to form almost the synapse in their brain of a positive exit, which starts to lay down the foundations of this creating fans rather than, parting with negativity.
Exactly. Individuals will know that it's their employer who they're sadly exiting who's provided this service for them. So all the benefit they will associate with the organisation that are providing it for them. And it's really powerful around the coaching side, because quite often individuals might be at a point where they're not necessarily looking for a similar or like-for-like role, and they might be looking for something new. So that career coaching side of it is all about the coach understanding the individual and then working together to think about what this individual will be looking for from the next role, and also understand not the soft and the hard drivers to make sure that they're coming away from this first stage with a really clear idea of how to shape their job search based on what they're looking for.
Yeah. At senior level, rather than even talking about a CV, we will just talk about life goals. When do you want to retire? What does retirement look like for you? And from that, we then build the missing piece, which will be the role that they'll take. So it really is, coaching really is getting under the skin of the individual, what their personal drivers are, as you said, Carly, not just their skill set. And then also not only the role, but the type of organization. So we will do things like PPI reports, we will do learning styles, we will do team fit, a lot of helping them see themselves as well, who they are now, and therefore what role is right for them next. So as part of the coaching, as we said, the first step would be to understand them as individuals, and also what their career journey therefore looks like. But then we need to get the shop window right, if you like. So we will then spend time looking at how they present themselves out to market. Some of these people will not have looked for a new role for absolute years. Some of them may not even be on LinkedIn. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's true. Some people who've been in a role for a long time will not have felt the need to network themselves in a business community, and they will not have thought about how to update their CV. They will not think about terminology for now. They will not think about the language that is used in a job search now, and they really won't know where to start in terms of who to network with, who to connect with. For us, as our recruitment element of what we do has shown, when people join us from an organization, they've gone through the exiting, they've gone through the mindset shift of looking forward and not backwards. It takes them to get to this point that they can really see themselves. And Carl, you're smiling. What have you got to say on this?
I think that's really true. I think that's why the CV is the natural next step in this. It's because actually, if they've been in an organisation for years, they might not have even thought about or looked at their own CV for a long time. And this is why you have to be ready first, because it's really hard if you're still feeling sort of grieving to sit down and write a CV positively. That really comes through in your CV. So it's getting through that stage, and once you've reached acceptance, working with the coach to understand what a good CV looks like, and taking as much advice from the coach as the employee can to ensure that they are going to have successful applications later down the line.
Very much so. And LinkedIn these days, even just the LinkedIn opening blurb about who you are and what your opportunities you're seeking, a lot of people will be changing career paths. They'll be changing what they do. I've been, sadly speaking to a lot of people from BA who've been there for 20 or 30 years, and they're going from customer service to financial planning and saying, help me with my LinkedIn page. So it really is about them feeling supported and getting the expertise of how to manage that in the here and now.
Absolutely. And then obviously there's your personal brand, because it's not just LinkedIn and your CV that represents you when you're job hunting. First of all, I think a lot of people don't realise that their other social media is really important when they're job hunting. A lot of employers these days will look on Facebook, they'll look on Instagram to get a feel for the person who's applying. So a good coach will talk an exiting employee through all of their social profile, as well as their LinkedIn, which is their professional shop window, just to make sure that they are putting out the right brand out there. And personal brand isn't just about social media, though. It's also about how people engage. It's about how people come across, even the way you write or send an email, making sure you pay attention to spelling and grammar. Everything like that gets noticed. And if someone's been in a role for a long time, they might need a bit of refreshing on how to present externally. So that's where the personal brand side comes in.
Yeah, it's also about helping them understand their communication is very much something like 55% of how people communicate is body language. Now, when you're doing a Zoom interview or, trying to communicate through the written word, as we know, we're not doing a lot of face-to-face at the moment, we really need to help them to overcome the not being face-to-face with using their tone more expressively. And just did an example of it there, really bringing their language to life, bringing their engagement and their connecting on Zoom or whatever video format they're going to do their connecting, using their tone, because tone is something like 38%. And actually the words people use when they speak is only 7% of their language, of their communication. So there really, a lot comes into personal brand. Yes, it's how you put yourself together, how you dress, how you look, but businesses and hirers are really smart. They can see through a front. They want to peel away layer after layer of an individual until they really get to the DNA of who they are, because culture is so key.
Exactly. So a good coach will essentially hold a mirror up to these individuals and show them how they're being perceived in ways that they might not understand, to help ensure that every engagement they have is going to be met in the right way.
Yeah, very much so. So once we have helped our expertise work out what they want to do and how they'd like to present themselves in doing that, we will then help them to work out how to engage, what organizations they want to engage with, how to apply for roles, engaging with recruitment companies to help make those introductions, and what kind of organizations they want to work with, large or small sectors. If it's not-for-profit organizations, how do they align? How do they, and actually, whether it's not-for-profit charity or business and commercial, these days people really do want to have their personal why and their drivers for working and their drivers for personal connection with what they do really supported and fulfilled. So helping them apply for the right role with the right organization is key. Then we also help every delegate, everyone establish what good looks like when they interview. Now, I remember going back to when I was 12 or 13 and having interview day at school. You know, you have to try and dress smart, you have to learn how to sit, you have to learn how to make eye contact, you learn how to do a formal handshake. Again, not really in this day and age, but there will be the current day equivalent of what good looks like when giving an interview. So things like how you present yourself, making sure your CV is up to date, making sure you have it accessible because you will be asked the right, questions relating to it, making sure that you've thought about what questions you're going to ask, which shows interest and engagement, and really doing your prep and research. And these days, it's not just looking at a website, is it? It's looking at social media. It's looking at what just happened in our organization page for this new company. I mean, there are so many places that you can glean information. So that's something that we do a lot on in terms of helping candidates be ready for interview.
Absolutely. I think a good outplacement coach will spend quite a lot of time in this space because coaching on interviews is really important. And quite often it's unfortunate, but people might be fantastic and able to do the job that they're applying for really well. But if they don't have the skills at interviewing, that can hold them back. And so a good coach can really help to intercept those challenges and again, hold a mirror up, role play and get them to understand how to relay their skills in the right way.
Well, we talk a lot about competency-based techniques, don't we? And this STAR approach, which is so popular now. It's the main way that organizations like to interview, and I'm sure all of our audience are familiar with it. But again, if these candidates haven't interviewed in years or they're out of practice, it can be quite daunting. And that's not just for people with more experience. We've been coaching millennials and graduates and they don't know how to do it either. It is a skill. So the multiple coaching really does come in handy there.
Absolutely.
Referencing libraries.
Yeah, so next, what you expect from a good outplacement coach is for them to provide a lot of really good information to your exiting employees and make sure that it's tailored as well. So this can include guides to various places to network. Obviously, it can be pointing them towards roles to apply for. But another thing that's really important in terms of reference library is introducing the employees to organisations that might help them. For example, if they are looking for a career change, which a lot of people will be, looking for organisations that can help to train and upskill them, professional bodies that they might want to get in touch with to talk about their career change. So that's a really key part of it as well, being able to point these people in the right direction for the next step that's been established is right for them. And even just helping with the use of the facilities during the outplacement cycle can be really useful if they need a quiet place to do a telephone interview or they want to do some research somewhere quiet, then a good outplacement coach would offer all of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, we have our offices in central London. We have all the IT facilities. We help our candidates do Zoom interviews from there as well. So it is just being available for them, whatever their needs are, because these are the uncertain times. And it is important for them to feel, as you said, Carly, they lose a community, but hopefully they gain a new one that's going to help them on their way in the uncertainty of it all. Something else that is really key as well is helping them to really think about their network, who they know, and who might actually be able to open some doors for them in this time. Again, if they haven't thought about their people and their friends and, colleagues over the years and relationships that they've created and connections they've created, there could be some value in that. So again, it's just helping them to see what's out there, who's out there, and how these people could help them open doors for their next opportunity.
Absolutely.
So something that we ensure that throughout our outplacement service, we very much see this as something like anything between 6 to 8 hours per individual. It's a lot of intense time. It's a lot of support. And within the different stages, we will also be available within that time to coach and advise. So it really is something that is a safety net for each individual that's being exited to know that their exiting employer, despite having to make some really difficult choices and say goodbye, is also really concerned about their well-being and their future success and happiness.
Exactly. Some of the feedback, in fact, that we've had is that people really like the fact that our coaches are accessible throughout the process. And it's not just when you've got a session booked with your coach, you can pick up the phone or email anytime. Because quite often you need an instant answer to something when you're in this complicated new world of job hunting. So that's a positive.
Yeah, very much so. So, Carls, we've not had questions. Well, I hope that means that we are answering all of the concerns or queries that people might have today on outplacement support. As we've covered, not only is outplacement key for those you're exiting so you can positively part ways, but it really will have an impact on the people that you keep in your organization. And something that we do is help you to communicate that right, both internally and externally. So you as an organization can actually get on with ensuring your organizational strategy is fit for purpose for these times, that your managers have clarity on what that is, and that they are then able to create the right what good looks like for each of the employees that you're keeping in the business. Everyone knows where they stand. They have the clarity on what good looks like, and everyone can push forward in the same direction. That really is what the Maine Group do by partnering with our clients and our business communities, give you the tools to achieve that. And there's never been a more important time as now, with all of the uncertainty and change that's out there, to think about outplacement as one of those tools.
Yeah, I think outplacement's always important, but especially if people are being exited into what isn't an easy market, it's actually when that support is needed even more. And what it does, it just really eases the transition for everybody involved. It's not a nice situation for anybody who's involved in the process, but this really does make everyone feel supported and just ease that transition.
Yeah, very much. And just closing out on the poll, Carly, before we tie things up. So it has very much stayed at 50%. The concern about the redundancy process is the following ability for an organization to deliver on its strategy. And 50% is all about remaining workers being left unsettled and demotivated. So as we end that poll and end our webinar today, we just want to say we hope that this has been of use and of help to you. If you do have questions or just want to talk through what's going on in your organization, please reach out to Carly and myself. We would love to have a chat with you. There's no charge on this. We are just here to give our experience and expertise in this difficult time and see if we can ease the burden and pressure on you and your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Pick up the phone anytime. A lot of people find that once they've chatted to us, they've got a bit more clarity of how to move forward with these things.
Indeed. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And Carly, thanks for being here and sharing the outplacement journey with myself and with all our attendees today.
Thanks everybody.
Bye all. Bye.